Okay, so let's now move on to demonstrations. I'll leave all this up on the board. This is what we had on the board when we were talking about the briefings. So allowing people to learn. Can we allow people to learn in demonstrations? Actually, I think we can. We'll come to that as we go along. Certainly never ask anyone to do something you don't already know that they can do. Now, in the lesson about briefings, we used the example of regulator recovery from behind the shoulder. And we knew that the student can do regulator recovery from behind the shoulder. We've seen them do regulator clear using both methods and blowing bubbles and all that stuff. And so what we did, if you remember in the briefing, we used their subconscious, or we used them to imagine doing the skill by telling us how they're going to do it. That allowed them to learn because it reinforced the techniques. And we certainly knew that they could do that. Now, the briefing should have been for auditory people, but we turned it into a kinesthetic, thing to allow people to learn. The demonstration clearly is for visual people. So that's where we're going to stick with visual people. So moving on, what is a demonstration for? Now, that's quite a good question, really. What's it for? And I think that when we start deliberating, it's so that the student is able to do the skill, so that they know how to do the skill. And the reason why I'm making this distinction is because sometimes we see instructors like teaching a skill or demonstrating a skill, for example, like a hover. And what the instructor will do, he or she will just sort of put a few quick bursts in, get up into a hover motionless for ages, and then sort of come back down again and ask the students to perform the skill. Now, of course, that is the instructor doing the skill rather than how to do the skill. So a demonstration isn't so that the students can see the instructor doing a skill. It's learning how to do that skill. So we'll stick with the example of regulator recovery. But before we go into it, I just want to find out exactly what PADI's definition of a demonstration is as well. You probably can't read these words, but certainly a demonstration needs to be slow so that the students can see it. It needs to be exaggerated, for sure. And my favourite word on here is it needs to appear easy. Okay, so that's what the student needs. That's what the student wants. And we want to try and turn this into a student-centric thing, as always. We want it to be student-centred and not instructor-centred. That's been like the whole, emphasis of the whole programme that we're dealing with here. So let's see how we can make a demonstration student-centred. Now, the first thing I think doesn't help, in my opinion anyway, is instructors, before a demonstration starts, one of the things that they do is say, "You watch me." And I think that sometimes comes across a little bit arrogant. And sometimes I think that students can get a little bit confused by it, because if they're sort of kneeling down, you've got 3 students, they're all staring at the instructor waiting for a demonstration to start, and then the instructor sort of tells them to do something that they're already doing. I think that's a little bit odd. And if you ask students, I think that quite a lot of them, the very first time they see that, they sort of get a little bit, that's a bit odd, he's asking me to do something, you watch me, it's a bit, he's up his own backside a little bit. But if you ask an instructor why he does it, well, or she does it, quite often the instructor will say, well, that's the way I was taught to do it, or that's the way I was taught, that's the way that it came across to me when I was learning, that's the way that PADI do it, that's the way that we do it, whatever it is, and none of those is a really good answer. But when it comes to them really searching for a good answer, they might come up with the answer was, well, actually the students know, they need to know when the demonstration is going to start. And I totally agree with that. I agree that there needs to be a signal so that the students are aware when the demonstration is going to start. But I don't think it's right for the instructor to be given a signal that is asking the students to do something that they're already doing. So for the last 15 or 20 years, what I've been doing is, well, in all cases, the students know that there's a demonstration coming. It's just that they need to know when that is ready. So what I do is give them an OK signal. It's more like the OK signal saying, are you ready for the demonstration now? But it's an OK signal. And when I get that OK signal back from the students, then I know that they're watching me, because they're not going to give me an OK signal and be looking somewhere else. So as soon as I get that signal back from the class, my demonstration will start. Now, I think we need to be careful with the demonstration. We need it to be exaggerated, and we need it to be slow, and we need it to be made to look easy. And sometimes you might see instructors, they sort of forget that people have short attention spans, and they're also instructors are like, look at me more or less, look how clever I am or what I can do. And what I want to do is to sort of try and prove this point, is pretend I've got some students over here on one day, and on a different day I've got the same calibre of students over here. So we've got like two situations. Over here, I want to give one demonstration, and over here a different type of demonstration, and I want you to decide which one you think will be a little bit more effective. So let's see where we go with this. So over here, I'm going to start with you watch me, and then I'm going to regulate a recovery from behind the shoulder. So you watch me. A demonstration. Over here, I'm going to give a slightly different type of demonstration. Okay, one was a lot longer than the other. And I want you to think about which one do you think would give the better results. I would urge you to try with real students both ways and see if you can find a difference. I honestly don't think that you're going to see much difference with the results of the students, which either way, I don't think. I certainly don't think a student with this one will find it looked easy. I don't think it looks easy. I think it looks pretty difficult to do. Whereas this one actually looked easy, and maybe they'll be a little bit more relaxed. But you might argue different. You might argue that over here, I made a point of pointing the regulator downwards, and I made a point of leaning right over to the right-hand side to get my regulator. So you might argue that these people over here might, at first time, have a first-time success rate higher than that batch over here, because I've gone into detail of suggesting what might go wrong. And you might be right. It could possibly happen. But what I want to do is focus over here and ask you another question. So let's say, for example, one of this group over here, because I didn't do all of this and all of this and all of this, if I ask this group over here to perform the skill, and one student takes the regulator out, pops it over their shoulder, puts their arm around, and the regulator's not there, what do you think that student will do next? Now, if your answer is that that student will bolt to the surface because they're scared, then you've made a big mistake, because you've asked them to do something that they that you don't know that they can do. They can't do this skill. They're not ready for this skill, if that's where they're going to go and bolt to the surface. Because what you're going to find is, with nearly every single student that does this, is that they'll take the regulator out, pop it over their shoulder, take their arm up, find that the regulator's not there, then they're going to look behind, get the regulator, find it, and pop it in their mouth. Now that is generally what happens. From an instructor's point of view, I'm really pleased it did happen, because now I know for sure that if that person in the real world out diving can't find their regulator, they now know how to get that regulator. They know that. We've allowed them to learn here. We've allowed them to learn using their own personal style. I'm going to take that a little bit further now, because what I want you to do now is tell me what was going through that student's mind when the regulator wasn't in their mouth. Oh, sorry, when they couldn't find the regulator. What was going through their mind? And do you know what? You can't answer that question. And the reason why you can't answer that question, same as me, I can't answer it, is because you don't know who they are. You don't know what's going through their mind. It could be, oh my God, my regulator's not there, I'm going to find it. It might be. It might be, I'm the alpha male here. I'm the one who really wants to look really cool in front of all of my other, peers here. Oh my gosh, I'm going to look a bit silly now. Where is it? Oh gosh, hope nobody noticed. I don't know what's going through their mind. But whatever is going through their mind is personal to them. It's individual to them. And we are definitely allowing them to learn using their own individual learning style. The same as if one of them takes the regulator out of their mouth, holds it the wrong way round, it goes into free flow. The first thing they're going to do is turn it back down again, and they will have learnt something. So over here, we're depriving people of learning by going through too many extra steps, which isn't on the slate anyway. And actually in the Divemaster course, I'm not sure exactly where it is, it's in some of the questions, it sort of strengthens the idea that a demonstration shouldn't cover all of these things that could possibly go wrong. I want to come back over to here again, because while we're doing the what if situation, what if one of these students over here takes the regulator out of the mouth, blows bubbles, pops it over to one side, can't get it, looks around, still can't get it, looks around, still can't get it. You come in, perhaps put the regulator back in their mouth, ask them to calm down or get their breath back and have another go. They take it out, they still can't get the regulator. Now, that might be like 1 in 10,000 students, I don't really know, but it could possibly happen. What are we going to do with that student? I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll have to re-demonstrate the skill, and we'd have to demonstrate with over to here, to the 1 in 10,000 people that need it. We're going to lean over, go like this, pop hand down, all of the things that would be needed to correct that student. And that's what's called prescriptive teaching. Now, PADI used the word prescriptive teaching. Normally they use it in the classroom, but here what we're doing is we're popping a prescriptive teaching concept into the swimming pool. In other words, we're allowing people to learn as much as we possibly can. We can find out what they can do and what they can't do, and what they can't do, we can then help with. This way, it's very, very student-centered, rather than the instructor, determine every step of the way what can happen. So what we're doing is allowing that. So that more or less is a demonstration. And in the next section, we're going to find out how we're going to correct problems in a little bit more detail than what we've done here, how we're going to correct problems, how we're going to deal with them, and then how we're going to debrief the skill afterwards to reinforce the correct procedures. So I hope you're enjoying this as it's going along, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.